a few key differentiators. One, I think we touched on already, was the fact that we have an intimate charm that is very strategically designed. But the main thing that we use as a differentiator is the fact that everything we do at Centro is based on human-centered design. I did my MBA, I worked in consulting. So that diverse experience taught me one thing, is that at the end of the day, all businesses work the same way.
But what we try to do is that, and this is spoken about quite a bit, is value-based hiring. So for us, essentially, we look for team members who have a very entrepreneurial spirit, just like us. And when they join us, we sort of give them that empowerment and allow them to fly.
Today, a very young and very exciting pair, a brother-sister duo of Chaitanya and Aishwarya Adgaonkar, who are founders of the Centro Hotels, hopefully Centro Hotel chain, right? And that's what they aim to be. And what we want to do today is, connect with them, talk to them about their journey, understand from their vision for Centro. But I have a bunch of questions that I've written down, Chaitanya and Aishwarya, and feel free to pick up whatever you want to pick up. So the first question is, what made you think about Centro? Why Centro? What was the thinking behind coming out with a hotel in Pune, in a city like Pune? So what was the thought process behind that? Chaitanya?
Yes. So actually, the idea of Centro really was, put in our heads when we were really young. Both our parents, they moved to Pune from a small city called Beat in about 1995. They moved to Pune. And the sort of business that our father had, it involved a lot of traveling. So across Maharashtra, and then as it grew, the business, he also traveled across other parts of India. So as kids, we got to travel a lot with him. And then both our parents really enjoyed traveling for leisure as well. And then they took us on a lot of trips. And from a very young age, therefore, that made a huge impact on us. Because we always loved the idea of travel, because the sort of experiences and the impact that travel had on us has really shaped our personalities as they are today. And when we sort of knew that, we wanted to get into some sort of business, and we were very lucky to sort of get into a business which we are also very passionate about. So I think the travel that we did at a very young age, and also in now we still keep on doing that, I think that really played a really huge role in sort of getting us into hospitality.
Okay, that's interesting.
On top of that, it also basically, both Chaitanya and I are very, we both love learning new things and doing different things. And this business really lets you explore all your interests. So whether that's design, architecture, food, service, running a business, the back end of it, we get to put our hands in all of it. And I think that's what makes us, keeps us wanting to do it again and again.
All right. That's very exciting. I mean, getting your hands in everything and starting something ground up, that's really, really exciting. And what's more exciting for me, when I look at you guys, I'm inspired, right? And Chaitanya, we have attended the cohort together, and I've always admired the clarity of thought in your mind. Coming back to the questions that I have, and I'm going to be specific about certain things, and I would like you to answer that. I have personally experienced Centro. I've stayed there as a guest. Also Chirp, the restaurant. I had a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
And I connect that to, it's a very purpose-built establishment, right? And it connects to me as a new age hospitality, right? That segment. So how do you think about that? How do you connect new age hospitality experience to what you have in mind for Centro?
So when it comes to new age hospitality, or the way we look at it, again, like you pointed out, we are very young. And so the way we thought of it is, what do we want as users when we go and travel? And that basically equates to the fact that the modern traveler is changing, their needs are changing, what they want is changing, but the hospitality industry isn't keeping up with it. So that's what new age hospitality is for us. It's designing for, well, right now our generation, tomorrow that's the next generation, but making sure that hospitality evolves at pace with how the world or the consumer is transforming.
Yeah, that's very exciting. That's a very interesting thought process. Is that the vision that you have for Centro, and is that the experience that you want to recreate when you grow Centro? Is that what you have in mind?
Most definitely, yes. I'm glad that you picked up on it because that's a very strategic decision that we have made. What we call it is an intimate charm that we offer. Because basically, if you look at all the competition out there, it's mainly global chains or international corporations that have a very cookie cutter approach, very impersonal feels, very intimidating when you step into a 150, 200 room hotel. We didn't want that because, especially again for the modern traveler, when your life is this fast paced, what you really lack is having connections with people, being able to talk to someone, feeling at home even though you're traveling all the time for work. So the next best thing is to make sure you're staying in a place that still feels a little warm and approachable. And so yes, so our business decision is to make sure that whatever property today or tomorrow that we scale up, it's going to be between 30 to 50 rooms, because at no point do we want our customer to feel intimidated when they walk into our hotel. That's also why we have a lot of plants in our hotel. It's just a very earthing feeling, a very grounding feeling.
Yeah, and also what we've done is that, like if you see when you walk into Centro, actually the space opens into Chirp. So Indians are used to a certain level of activity, like we don't want secluded people. So the way we live, or the way our events are, or the way our communal gatherings are, it's a very community focused sentiment in everything that we do, everything that makes us very comfortable. So when you're checking in, it's essentially walking into a restaurant and sitting on a table and then checking in. So it gives you that feeling of coming to a space where like other people are there. And a lot of our single travelers also give us this feedback who are staying for longer times. When they come to the restaurant, they have this feeling of belonging with the city, because a lot of our restaurant guests are from the city, while a lot of our hotel guests come from outside. So that interaction that we get between like our guests at Centro and here is always fantastic.
Picking up from there, when you say most of your hotel guests come from other cities,
Right.
and obviously you have plans to expand, right? So how do you look at the market? Is it going to be in and around cities like Pune, or are there other cities that you're looking at? What is going to be your segment?
So both of us actually, we have this thing where we say that, like it's at small towns but big dreams. So what we have seen, and coming from small towns, both of us, and having understood and felt the pulse of what's happening, we really want to focus our growth and the next steps for Centro on the tier 2, tier 3 cities in India. And just a simple metric wherein if you see that it's just 8 metros in the country, and there are 180 tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So the opportunities that lie there are tremendous, and we feel that we can make a huge dent or an impact over there. And we feel that this is an industry that's been ignored, or this market segment has been ignored for a very long time, and we feel we're very ready to disrupt that.
And how does your prior experience, Chaitan, for you in hospitality, and Aishwarya, you in consulting, and I believe a bit in technology, right? How does that relate to Centro, the growth, ideation, or the future plans for Centro? How do you connect your prior experience?
Right. So for me, I was very lucky to get some really great experiences before I actually started working full time. And the most impactful one was the one I had at Marriott. So Marriott Worldwide, as many of you would know, is the largest hospitality company in the world. And for me, when as a young student, when I worked with Marriott, what I realized was this company is based in the US. This maybe like 10,000, 20,000 miles from here, and they're running like about 40,000 hotels in the world. And to offer that level of service at that scale is something incredible. And to still have that sort of detail or commitment to guests was something incredible, and has been a huge inspiration for me to build sort of scalable brands for so long, and to sustain that for so long, to enter so many geographies. So the things that I picked up over there is that I think what we realized was that to delight your guests, you don't need money, it's just some sort of commitment, and that commitment can be built into people. So that guest centricity, or what we like to call a human centered design, has become a central pillar to what we do at Centro, and I feel like that takes a huge inspiration from where I've worked before. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about that, Aishwarya?
I think I agree entirely. For me, my experience is very different. I come from an engineering background. I worked in an insurtech startup. I did my MBA. I worked in consulting. So that diverse experience taught me one thing, is that at the end of the day, all businesses work the same way. It's just a business. The product you're providing is different, but businesses are built the same way. And so for me, when I come into this from an outsider perspective, and when I combine that with my experience as a consumer, I'm able to ask questions to, say, Chaitanya, which sometimes he doesn't have answers to, or sometimes he takes a pause. And he'll be like, yeah, it doesn't need to be done this way. It's always done this way, but it doesn't need to. So let's think about how we can change it.
Yeah.
So that complementary skill set that we have, I think, works in our favor a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting. And but that brings me to my next question. You briefly touched upon that, but I want you to, kind of emphasize a bit more. What in your opinion or in your vision are the key differentiators that sets Centro apart from other similar hotels? And I probably, as an end user, I can't differentiate much, but what are the key differentiators that you want to bring out?
So there's a few key differentiators. One, I think we touched on already, was the fact that we have an intimate charm that is very strategically designed. But the main thing that we use as a differentiator is the fact that everything we do at Centro is based on human-centered design. And what that means is not being just guest-centric, but what it means is thinking about the end user, whether that's in the back of the house or the front of the house. So to give you an example, the way the rooms at Centro have been designed, one of our pet peeves was always that when you go to a hotel room and you want to turn off a light, you can never find the switch. And that's very frustrating. Yeah. So why does that need to be the way it is? What we then went on to do was, we have an icon on every switch to make sure the guest knows, okay, I want to turn that light off, I know which switch to use. That's a very small example, but basically the point of user-centered design is to make sure that your experience is as frictionless as possible, where the guest might not even know what actually happened. But that's the whole point. They don't need to have to think about how to, make sure they have a comfortable stay. So that is our key differentiating factor. We've made sure our rooms are very small because the Indian traveler is very value conscious.
Indeed.
And if they are value conscious, how do we provide that? We keep the room small, but we've made sure the room is wide because it still feels spacious. So those are little tweaks that we've done in the design. We've done tweaks in the way we communicate with the guest. So everything is designed with the user in front and center.
And the second thing I just want to add is, I think one is just one human-centered and the other is technology, So what we've realized is that a lot of hotel players are essentially playing an analog game in a digital world. So, and we, with both of our backgrounds and curiosity for technology, I think that has really helped us sort of differentiate us. And in the future, we keep on sort of want that to be an advantage when we keep on doing this, is that we've not, every step that we take in this human-centered design phase, at the end, we first, even if we write down a process, then we are going to sit down and see that, okay, where is technology going to come in? And we sort of put technology as an enabler, it's going to enhance the experience. It's essentially not going to replace the person, but improve the experience. That's what we try to focus on.
That's a very valid point. I mean, I can correlate to
Right.
that. We also firmly believe that technology is the enabler. Finally, it is the human who is going to deliver the experience. And how do I, our focus is on how do I make the life of that human also easier, right? But coming to technology, how do you see technology supporting you in your vision of growing Centro? Do you see that evolving, or do you see Centro continuing on the current path of technology?
So I think what both of us, so one of our core values is actually continuous improvement. And that is what keeps on happening in the technology world as well, right? In the last 8 or 10 months, we've seen that AI chatbots have made a huge impact. And so what we do is that, we sort of constantly keep on refining whatever technologies that we use. And it's just not at the guest facing side, but also at the back of the house. So for example, recently we sort of integrated a system which essentially now, because we are very sustainability conscious, as young entrepreneurs, we really feel like, it's our responsibility to sort of leave an impact. And we were tracking what our water usage was. And then we worked with a startup based in Pune, and they have an IoT based solution to sort of track our water usage. So we can specifically see if there are any pipes, there are leakages. If you're losing water somewhere where we shouldn't be losing it, how can we, like, so for example, we heat water throughout the day for showers, but at night it's sort of redundant. Then how can we sort of utilize it better? So then when recently they came up with an AI solution on top of that stack. So the IoT solution was already there. And then we added this, wherein now I didn't need to monitor the dashboard with based on insights that we've already gathered, that this is how many liters of water we need during the day, this is how many you need at night. Now that information has been fed into it, and the AI essentially is handling that on a daily basis. This is something that's happening on the back of the house. On the front of the house, we essentially, what we did was that a lot of our team members come from various levels of education or exposure. So it is not necessary that their level of communication is always the same. Somebody might be very comfortable in English, somebody might just be picking it up, they might have an accent or maybe some specific words that they use. So what we did was that we created a custom GPT for ourselves. And now essentially if they want to send a reply to a guest or sort of draft an email, they write it down, they put it into that GPT, and the GPT sort of corrects it, sets the tone of voice that we use, which is not a very formal one. We are not like, we don't send you regards, we are your friends who host you when you're here. So that tone of voice needs to be very consistent, and then the GPT essentially helps us that our team also doesn't take the pressure of making sure that, oh, am I speaking correctly, am I using the right words? So that fear goes away from them. But the guest experience always remains consistent.
And
in the future, maybe something comes up, then we'll be looking forward to that.
It's really interesting. Now coming back to the team, obviously, as you said, the front of the house is guest facing.
Right.
But also there is a back of the house.
Right.
And at least my understanding of the hospitality space is it's very human intensive and human centric, both sides. It's, as you correctly said, it's human delivering the experience to humans.
Right.
I mean, technology just can play an enabler role. So how, and as you said, your team members come from varied backgrounds.
Right.
So how do you manage some of the challenges related to training or some of the challenges related to upskillment?
Right.
Because you certainly want to maintain a specific level.
Right.
Or standard that you have established. So how do you deal with those challenges?
Right. So we have like you said, people are very important. So we always say that, we are actually in the business of building people, and the people are the ones who will build our hotels. So they actually, the team that we have, the core team, I think like you rightly said, training and the sort of like the backgrounds they come from, it does create a challenge in terms of delivering a very consistent guest experience. What we have done to sort of tackle that is that, like we said, that our target is to go into tier 2 and tier 3 cities. That's where we are targeting to sort of recruit people from as well. Because from what we have seen is that the aspiration and the hunger that the boys and the girls in these cities have is incredible. So for example, right now we have our general manager Virendra. He comes from a small town in UP called Chitrakoot.
Mm-hmm.
And like the nearest hotel to him is about 400 kilometers. But today in Pune, he's sort of leading a hotel as big as Centro. And he comes from a very humble background. But what we try to do is that, and this is spoken about quite a bit, is value-based hiring. So for us, essentially, we look for team members who have a very entrepreneurial spirit, just like us. And when they join us, we sort of give them that empowerment and allow them to fly. So that, so then is when they, sort of take hold, take charge, take ownership of that department or of that section. And then they flourish really well. We've seen that.
Right.
I think what we also do, once we don't look at skills when we hire, we look at the values. And then once they start working with us, it's much easier for us to identify what their strengths are.
Yeah.
Like every person can't be good at one thing, but there's another thing that they're good at. And it takes some time to figure out what that skill is. But then once that has been figured out, then they thrive in it. And then they feel, a lot more excited to do better as well. So that has worked out quite well for us.
So taking sustainability a bit further, do you see that model evolving further?
Right.
Are you able to bring measurable benefits out of that? How do you see that equation? So you're monitoring and you're doing certain things about it, but are you getting measurable benefits out of it?
Right. So I think there are two most important things about sustainability. One is that we feel that it needs to be done. We feel responsible. as young entrepreneurs, like I said, that it needs to be done because we want a better future, we want to leave a better legacy. So that's one. Second, it makes really a lot of practical and financial sense. So for example, if you look at Centro, we have a rooftop solar installation and it powers 60% of our electricity needs. So with the power cost and the energy cost going so high, this really creates a good impact on our bottom line. And it makes practical sense for us to be sustainable at that point. Not only is it just good for the environment, but also for our bottom line. And that makes me very happy.
So the next set of questions, and Aishwarya, I would like you to answer that how do you deliver or manage to deliver the best guest experience? And I personally experienced that with affordability. How do you manage that? I mean, what's your mantra?
Right. So we believe that hospitality is about intention. It doesn't take money to smile at your guest. It doesn't take money to go out of your way to help a guest with their luggage. And so honestly, giving or delivering a good experience is just about having intention. So for us, making sure that providing a good service or good value at an affordable rate, they are not related. You can provide good service as long as you intend to. So what we are doing is just focusing on training. What we've realized is that there is a problem in the industry, the way the industry is set up. When you go to tier 2 or 3 cities, suddenly your expectation from hospitality just goes down. And there is no reason for it to be so. So actually our vision is to set the standard for hospitality in tier 2 and 3 India. Because it really doesn't take that much, it just takes intention, and that's what we intend to do.
That's very interesting.
For us, it's always a little bit funny when we get reviews, and I understand where the guest is coming from, and a lot of guests leave us reviews saying that the room was very clean. And for us, that is a given. Like, I don't think, and it comes back to what Aishwarya has discussed, is that because guests have stayed at rooms, paid for it, and seen that it is not clean, is the expectations have been very lowered. And for us, it is like our team knows that cleanliness is not a discussion. That is where like our thing starts from. Like that is not where we have
I
to.
understand, and I relate to that because I've experienced that. And I think the thing that I could have changed in myself is that if I experienced that, I should not have tolerated it, right? And it also depends upon. I believe it largely also depends upon the guests in terms of what standards they set for themselves for you to be able to deliver those experiences. But I think that brings me to my next question. How do you deal with competition, right? And competition, I think I can't really pinpoint because my experience at Centro was far too different than anywhere I had. So I don't want to name a hotel chain, but I want to generalize and say, how do you deal with other OTAs? Likes of Airbnbs and similar service providers. So how do you manage that?
Right. So I think I'll take the bit about other hotels and Aishwarya can talk about the OTAs and stuff. So I think compared to the other hotels, coming back to Aishwarya's point about intention, what we've seen is that a lot of it's a very infrastructure driven business. Like you need to sort of focus on your product, the hard and the soft product constantly, and it needs to be constantly kept evolving. So I'll just give you an example. Our dad still, for our business, he keeps on traveling a lot. And there are hotels built maybe 20 years back when you didn't need to have a charging point next to your bed. And today, like everybody's carrying a phone, maybe multiple devices, a watch and all. So he's recently stayed at a hotel in Nashik where the plug point was above the bed. Like and you had to keep the phone on the bed head, like the headboard. And so this is the sort of thing that we realize that, that hoteliers need to realize that they have to up their game or at least evolve with the sort of the guest that's changing. So the other hoteliers, I think we have that advantage over other hotels in terms of that we are ready to sort of take that step. When we built Centro, for example, in 2019, we already had a multi-plug in USB-A, and just maybe last year we changed all of them to a USB-A, USB-C combination. So it's a very small example, but it's a 20-year journey from USB-A to USB-C, but you have to take that step as a hotelier. And also applies at other things, right? People want a little healthy options in breakfast, for example. People want something vegan, something gluten-free. You need to start listening to what your customer is saying.
So I understand, and I think I'm correlating it back to how we started this interaction, because that's where I said that you're very young and very dynamic. And I think that's where the change of thinking comes
Right.
in, right? But you have led me into my next question. Naturally, you started talking about food, and again, I want to talk about Chirp, right? And I probably had the best vegetarian food with the spread was amazing, the portioning was fantastic. Me and my team members have had multiple meetings there over lunch, and we had the best experience there. And let me be very frank about this. We went with an open mind, not very open to the fact that what kind of food am I going to get there. But it was a great experience. So what's the thinking behind Chirp, right? I want to start from there. What's the thinking behind Chirp? The name, the ambience, the menu. What all goes into this ideation? That's what I want to know from you.
So Chirp is actually built on 3 pillars. It's no borders, it's comfort, and it's plant forward. And now, if I talk about each of them a bit, when I say no borders, I mean that the menu, the cuisine itself has no borders. Again, when I talk about comfort, it's about having food that is comfortable. At no point do we want our guests to feel intimidated looking at the menu, not knowing what to order. We want them, if they enjoy, a smoothie, they should have that. If they want to have a dosa, they should be able to have it. We want everyone from a grandkid to a grandparent to be able to come there, have a meal together and not sacrifice on what they're eating. Because at the end of the day, going out to eat is a community or a communal experience. So everyone should have what they like to eat, but also have a good time with each other. So that's what we mean by comfort. And by plant forward, it has 2 aspects to it. One is all our food is vegetarian. It's plant forward. We focus a lot on local sourcing, etc., which is great for the environment and it ties into our sustainability. But it's also plant forward in the sense that the space is filled with plants. And that is what, even if people don't realize it, at the end of the day, you can never get tired of plants. You're never going to get tired of the ambience because it's nature. Whereas other restaurants or other cafes that you go to, after you go there for 5 years, you'll be like, okay, now let's try a new place. So I think that's essentially the concept that Chirp is built on.
No, that's interesting. So again, as a concept, is it always going to be Centro and Chirp together, or are these to be treated like 2 different brands? I mean, what's your vision about that?
Right. So what we've realized is that to sort of build a very sustainable model, and like Aishwarya spoke, the rooms, the hotels will always have between 30 to 50 rooms. I think it is very well complemented by an F&B revenue, and also the fact that the hotel is usually for travelers from outside the city, but we want to sort of build a space for the community in the city as well. So that's why along with Chirp we have a rooftop space called Bloom, which is an event space. So Chirp and Bloom are essentially our attempts to engage with the local community, because when we build a hotel, the hotel, it becomes a part of the community there where it thrives, and we want people to come there and make it their own. So every time a guest from outside comes and stays there, they sort of feel that belonging to the community. So ideally, yes, we will sort of, our first preference will always to have a Centro with a Chirp and a Bloom. But definitely there will be locations where maybe we'll have to skip one of them. But ideally, we feel that food essentially plays a huge role in delivering an entire hospitality experience.
To add on to that a bit, especially because we are targeting tier 2 and 3 cities, what we've realized is that India overall has a lack of public spaces. And hospitality essentially fills that gap where they act as public spaces or communal spaces. Now, when we are going to tier 2 and 3 cities, there's an even larger gap of these spaces. So if we are able to, solve that issue where we are able to still provide a standardized taste and service level, then we do think that the menu that we have and the whole concept that we have would work well, because again, tier 2 and 3 cities are full of people who are aspirational, who want to try new things, and the fact that everything we provide is still comfortable would be a very good way for people there to explore new cuisine.
My last question, right? My last question is, what's next for Centro, Chirp and Bloom? Right? I'm talking about 3 brands, but you could combine them together.
Yeah.
And tell us what's going to happen next. What's in your mind? What are you planning? How do you see setting up more establishments? And at the same time, how are you going to manage that growth?
Right.
Right?
So the vision is simple. It's big, but it's simple. It's to set the standard for hospitality in tier 2 and 3 India. What that means is we want to expand, of course. Strategically, the first thing we would like to do is that within the next year, have another property. Ideally, that's in a different micro market in Pune, but we are open to exploring properties in Nasik, Nagpur, Aurangabad, whatever comes across. By 2030 though, we would like to have 20 properties under our belt.
Okay.
So that is the vision and the mission for
Alright.
us, and hopefully it goes better than that. Let's see.
That's exciting.
And on a little bit of a larger vision, if you look at it, and this is something that we've discussed, is that we feel that there are a lot of similarities between tier 2, tier 3 cities in India to other countries in the SAARC countries. Like if you look at like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, or even Thailand, and then Africa again, with a lot of smaller cities coming up, there's a lot of similarity in terms of the consumers there. And we feel that, if we build it really strongly, I think it can be scaled into becoming a really global brand, because the values are still going to be very, very much relevant, even if we go to another part of the world.
Okay, that's exciting, and I'm sure you will get there, because I again, I'm going back to how we started, and the clarity of thought in both of you, the clarity in the segment that you want to be in, the clarity of what your guests expect, and how are you going to deliver that. I think these are the fundamentals, right? I mean, you know what you want to be, you know when you want to be that, and you know what experience you want to deliver, right? So all the best to you, and our compliments to you, and I'll continue to enjoy Centro, use Centro, stay at Centro, and eat at Chirp. So there you go, folks. Whenever you are in Pune, stay in Centro, eat at Chirp, and have fun in Blue.
Thank you so much for providing this.
Thank you very much for being here. It's an honor to host you.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you very much for contributing to the Why Involve Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
It was a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you, guys.